So, today class, we'll be learning about sequence and summary, okay? So sequence is how the story moves along. And summary is when you talk about the whole story in only a few lines. So class, what are we going to be talking about today?
We're going to be talking about sequence and summary.
Very good. So, today the book that we're going to be reading is called An Orange for Frankie. Before we get started, there are going to be a couple of vocab words that come up that we might not already know. So, if we look over here, the first vocab word that we're going to come across is glycine crock, which is just a fancy name for a pot. Engineer, which is a train driver, and a bow. I know that's spelled a little weird, guys, but that stands for a large branch. So, another thing that we should remember is our anchor chart for class this week. It's about sequence and summary. So, as you can see, we have a roller coaster drawn out here, and these people are just at the beginning. That's the beginning of the story. And, like on a roller coaster, as it starts going up, that's the middle. And then finally, it comes down to the end, and that's where you get off the ride. Okay? So,
Okay.
An Orange for Frankie. As you can tell from the cover, clearly an orange and a little boy are involved. If I had to guess, I think this is Frankie. Is there anything else, class, that we can pick out here?
There's a Christmas tree.
Very good. So, if I had to guess, I think this story is going to talk about Christmas. All right, so here's the first page. All right, so another thing that I think we might be able to tell is that a train's going to take apart. And if we remember our vocab words from earlier, engineer is a train driver, so I think that's probably a pretty good guess. It was an early winter. A morning mist lingered over the frosty fields in Lock Center. The snow whirled along the railbed in front of the 628 freight train, hurtling along the tracks out of Lansing, bound for Detroit. Frankie was the youngest boy in the Stoll clan. He was all of 10. He shared his room with his two older brothers, Will, who was 13, and Ernest, the 16-year-old. They all awoke to the whistle of the 628 as it chuffed to a stop at the water tower on the edge of their property. Frankie sprang out of bed and leapt to the window light. "She's streaming in, and right on time, too," he sang out excitedly. The boys dressed as fast as they could and tumbled down the stairs to their ma's kitchen. There were chores to do before school, and they had to help get the breakfast for the guests that would soon arrive at their back door. The kitchen was already smelling like hoe cakes and warm molasses. The aroma of coffee and chicory was hanging low in the air. Thick rashers of bacon and salt pork were spitting and sizzling in the pan on the wood stove. Frankie's three younger sisters were already downstairs. Bertha turned out a skillet of cornbread to cool on the sideboard. She was 9, the oldest girl still at home. Alta, the 6-year-old, was getting eggs from the glycine crock to be fried up. Class, do you remember what a glycine crock is? If we don't, we can go back right over here to our vocab words.
Oh, I know.
Ashley, what does it mean?
It's a pot.
Very good. So, while Iva, the 3-year-old, played with corn dolls in the pantry, Frankie's 3 older sisters, Stella, Ada, Mabel, had all gone to normal school and were teaching, though Stella, the oldest, had gotten married and was the mother of a 3-year-old girl. She and her husband were farming the spread right next over the holler. "Look, it's Mr. Dunkel. He's the engineer today." Class, what does engineer mean?
Train driver?
Exactly. Will announced as he looked out the kitchen window light. "There, Ma." Looked and smiled, then surveyed the raggedy men, the hobos who were coming up to the house behind him. Mr. Stoll swung open the back door and handed the engineer a stoking cup of hot coffee. "Step in. Looks like that cold out there is blowing hard up your back," she called out. Then she served up a plate of hot hoe cakes for him. "You boys see to it those men out there get these washed up," she said as she drizzled molasses on the hoe cakes and motioned to the 4 men huddling together. Ernest, Will, and Frankie toted baskets of food to the back door. Bertha set out a bucket of steaming water with a chunk of lye soap and a towel. The men dragged off their muffles and hats, rolled up their thoroughbred sleeves, and washed themselves. Much obliged, they muttered. Mr. Dunkel, like most of the engineers and bulls on the line, wasn't supposed to allow hobos on his train. But he knew times were hard and that those men got very little kindness from the old world, so he turned a blind eye. Frankie kept the hobos' cups filled with hot coffee. Most of them had come through before, except one. Frankie noticed that the man couldn't stop shivering, wearing a fur hat but a threadbare coat.